From Greater Sandton and beyond, get ready for the Sandton Times Hour
with your host,
Alexander.
Ladies and gentlemen, everyone in between and beyond, welcome to the Sandton Times Hour. It's edition 187. It's week 12 of 2025. And as always, if you don't catch the Sandton Times Hour on 919, well, you can catch it on some of the leading podcast platforms out there in the universe, including Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Podcast Party, AfriPods, and so many more. So don't forget to subscribe and share the interviews if you have someone who might have missed it. I'm Alexander Leitner, and it's my opportunity to give you a very warm and special welcome, especially to those listening to the very first time. If you've not been with us on a weekly basis, well, it's good to have you join the Sandton Times Hour Nation in Johannesburg and Pretoria, across South Africa, and anywhere and everywhere else in the world. If you tuned in online or on air, I'm happy to report that all is well in Sandton land. And as always, it's not just about me, it's about you as well. And I'd love to hear from you. And you can get in touch on a myriad of different platforms. You can use email, and you can email editor@sandtontimes.co.za. You can connect on social media @Sandton Times and share your thoughts and feedback. And of course, the website, www.sandtontimes.co.za. And our dedicated WhatsApp line for the Sandton Times, 084 Sandton. That's 084-726-3866, 084-726-3866. And feel free to send through your voice notes, your text messages, thoughts, feeling, comments, all of those things. And we might just feature it on one of the upcoming shows. Joining behind the mixing desk, making sure everything sounds 100%, is my main man, Vincenzo. Buongiorno. Ciao. Vincenzo, it's good to have you back behind the desk. You have a good week? Yeah? Yeah, I had a good week. I had a busy week. I moderated 2 full-day conferences, one on cybersecurity and one on digital transformation, with some of the country's leading chief information officers, chief technology officers, those responsible for some of the biggest companies in South Africa and their IT systems. And let me tell you, some very interesting discussions. I mean, especially for somebody who's not necessarily in that business or in that field on a daily basis. The conversations that are being had at that level about your information, your data, cybersecurity, how artificial intelligence is going to start making things easier, or what challenges it brings. Well, the one takeout I had is that the reality is, as people who are not in that field, we don't know enough as to what we're dealing with on a daily basis when it comes to our security from a tech perspective. I mean, one of the great highlights of these 2 days was they had an ethical hacker. So this is somebody who's a hacker who understands how things work, how hacking and scams take place, but they consult to big companies on their IT infrastructure. So they'll actually try and hack the systems, be it a bank, a telecoms company, a manufacturer, and they'll tell them where the weaknesses are in their systems. And it's incredible, because the average payout for ransomware, so that's when they kind of shut down your systems, keep everything sort of under lock and key, and then say, well, listen, either you pay us some money or we don't give you your data back, etc., is somewhere like $2.5 million, $2.7 million. I mean, that is a lot of money for a company to fork out to just get their data back and get their systems up and running. So they obviously want to have someone like this who tells them before this happens where the issues are, where the loopholes are. And he took us through a demo. He showed us how it's done. You know, these emails that you get that say, oh, you know, you need to pay a courier or you need to do something, and then you click on it and then you go through to another website. And before you know it, your credit card, your bank card's been cleaned out or something else has been compromised. It's both fascinating and frightening, and I think we don't have enough conversations around your safety on your cell phone, on your email, whatever it is. I think there's a massive gap in the education system, and especially as the world is moving on now with AI and all kinds of other tech. Do we know enough? Then I also, on a more leisurely track, finally got a chance to check out the candlelight concerts. I'm sure you've probably seen it online. It's when they have this string quartet bathed in candlelight. It's almost like a few thousand candles that surround the string quartet, and they do anything from Queen to ABBA to Coldplay to Hans Zimmer on classical instruments. It's quite something that was hosted here in Sandton. I had a chance to go check it out, and that was quite spectacular. And we've also got some details up on the website. If you want to go check this out, if this sounds intriguing, go check that out. And then also there's a new musical in town called Dear Evan Hansen, and I would also recommend you to go experience that and the candlelight concerts if you're looking for something to just switch off a bit and recoup from a hectic week. Let me also take a moment right now to wish my mom a very happy birthday for this week. She's doing well, she's strong, and I wish her all the very best for the year ahead. And of course, health and happiness, and the entire family loves you, Mom, and we only wish you the best. Back to business. What and who are we talking to this week? Well, in a bit, I'll be finding out a little bit more about an exciting new residential development taking shape in Sandton, and I'll be chatting to the lead architect joining us all the way from Australia. Then I'll be embarking on a maiden voyage on a new cruise ship in the next week, and I want to share some of the info with you, give you a bit of a pre-taster. Obviously, once I'm back, I'm going to be bringing some great interviews back with me and some more insights, so stay listening for that. And finally, South Africa's car market is experiencing a major shakeup, be it from electric cars, be it from an increase of Chinese brands on our roads. And I'll be catching up with a man who has all the data, and he'll be chatting with me and talking us through all of that. Stay listening. It's all coming up in the next hour.
Show some love.
Subscribe, share,
Leave a review and rating for the Sandton Times Hour.
on your favorite podcast app now.
The best of talk and music in 1 hour. This is the Sandton Times Hour.
So Olympus Sandton is a landmark mixed-use development which will be joining the skyline of Africa's richest square mile. And it's nestled between LXX Sandhurst, if you know where that is. It's one of the newer sort of malls that have popped up close to the Discovery head office. So between those two, you'll see that there's been a bit of development. There's been some billboards that have been put up. There's also a bit of a showroom that you can go and visit. And it's a development that is a partnership between Growthpoint Properties and residential developer Tricolt. And as you know, Growthpoint has quite a significant footprint in the heart of Sandton when it comes to predominantly office space. But it represents a first major residential development in a very long time, I would say, in Sandton. And it's targeting the growing demand for urban living in Sandton Central, because I think up until now we've had a lot of business development, a lot of hotels, convention centers, restaurants, offices, and all of that. But the big debate has always been people are coming from the outside into Sandton and then leaving again. There needs to be more residential. Well, here to chat to me about this is Aram Lello. He's the lead architect for Olympus Sandton. And Aram, welcome to the Sandton Times Hour.
Nice to be here. Thanks, Alex.
You're joining us all the way from Australia, so I appreciate you making the time with the time difference. But let's get into this development, Aram. What factors do you think contribute to the overwhelming demand that you've seen for this luxury development popping up on Rivonia Road?
I think we need to do a couple of steps back. I think we need to definitely mention it to start who is behind this fantastic development. I mean, the two kind of entity or developers that you just mentioned, Growthpoint and Tricolt, are probably one of the top developers in the country, both of them with different strengths and ability. And I think that's really the key point to start with. I think secondly, the location can't be ignored. I mean, it's fantastic. You are at the highest point in Sandton. This particular site has kind of that unique position of being a sort of gateway into Sandton, which I think is fantastic and will help to enrich the outcome of the project. And then, from there, you have this incredible, amazing view of the urban forest of Johannesburg, which I think is one of my favorite kind of characteristic of that city. You have incredible amenity that are already there. And then ultimately is the design. I think from the beginning, we create something that was people focused or people centric. and focusing around really the experience from the moment you're walking into the lobby all the way to your apartment, the clubhouse, the sky bar. Is all about experience, creating that emotional connection with your residents.
Yeah, we're talking about 2 towers. So, as I say, if people haven't really got an idea of what we're talking about, hop onto the Sandton Times website. We've got a bit of an article up there. There's some images, and it'll give you a bit of an artist's impression of what is planned. And I must always say, I always love how the architects in Sandton are outdoing each other in terms of the buildings. I don't know if this is by design or by professional courtesy, but one building looks more delicious than the next, and everyone's bringing this real texture and quality to each building. It's not just sort of an East German design where there's just a whole bunch of concrete buildings being put up in square blocks next to each other, and that's the skyline. And this is one of those developments, once again, that just adds a whole nother sort of gem to the collection that is the Sandton skyline. How does this fit into what is essentially the broader Sandton summit? Because I know at one point there was an idea to build this precinct. I think there were plans to do a theatre and sort of an art mile and all these kind of things. Is that sort of still now an opportunity to reinvigorate that idea?
Yeah, I think really Olympus will pretty much open the door to the DNA of the Sandton Summit vision, where it really wants to be this amazing kind of precinct, focusing around pedestrian experience, bringing together all aspects of life, play, work, and live. Everything will be at a walking distance from your home or from your office. And I think finally, with Olympus, I think Sandton Summit will see the light and will start really growing.
So the 2 towers are called the Athena and the Apollo. I think the first one is already, I'd always like to say, almost sold out, if not sold out at this point. It's been doing exceptionally well. Do you think that this is a bit of a sign of a increased demand and interest to invest in high-end residential developments in Sandton?
Yes, I think definitely the idea was really to create this kind of unique design. There's 2 towers, one slightly taller than the other, but I think they complement each other. And they, Athena being your first tower, the tallest one, which also includes the sky bar, the clubhouse. It also has, if you want, the kind of responsibility of being the gateway into the precinct. And Apollo is just few floors lower than the first, but it's going to be more intimate, slightly, focusing more on the amazing view towards the Inanda kind of urban forest. So it will be nice that the synergy and slightly different product between the 2.
Oh, that's tremendous. I mean, from what I've seen on pictures, it looks like it's going to be quite something really spectacular. And do you feel that this could be, based on its success, an opportunity for more of these kind of developments to start popping up in Sandton?
I think Olympus will change the game. I think it will create a sense of, of confidence that actually when you put together all the right ingredients, you can deliver something that is quite special. And not special only in terms of architecturally, but actually is a successful development that really please everyone involved. I tend to be always very optimistic, and I love the energy of Johannesburg. They normally love to go for something that is different, bold, and unique. And I think Olympus represents, very well that attitude towards life.
Well, I'm chatting to Aram Lello. He's the lead architect for Olympus Sandton about this new development that is gaining much attention, making some very fast progress as new developments go. More on this on the Sandton Times Hour right after a quick break.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
Chatting to Aram Lello, lead architect for Olympus Sandton, speaking on the topic of Olympus Sandton. And just before the break, we were touching on just how things are going, why the idea came about, how this is going to potentially impact the rest of the area. Adam, we've seen a lot of residential developments over the past 10 years trying to take hold in Sandton. And I'd say there's probably a handful of them that have never even left the blueprints. They kind of came and they went, and there was a lot of fanfare. And when they left, the fanfare and the trumpets didn't make any noises. It was just a very sort of very sad kind of ending to the whole thing. Why do you think Olympus Sandton has managed to gain traction where others have just spent so much time and effort in trying to just get a foot in the door?
Alex, I think there's a number of reasons, but the key one, I think, is really about a much larger project. I think Tricolt residential portfolio has always been a go-to choice for investor, first-time buyer, or those that looking to downsize, who are seeking high quality luxuries living space. And I think this is one of the main reasons why Olympus stands out from the other residential development of the area. It's just the strong, solid name that Tricolt represents in the market of a luxury residential.
Do you feel that there could also potentially be some sort of economic factors, people wanting to maybe leave other parts of the world and now seeing South Africa / Sandton as an opportunity to do that?
Well, I think as well in the model of how Tricolt's design residential apartments, it's not just targeting, the top kind of layer of wealthy and individual. I think it's really watch carefully what the population of South Africa is doing, how they're changing, the demographic is growing, and create a great mix of product that satisfy multiple, I think, investors or buyers.
And when you design this kind of development, do you find that there's a lot of interest from local, international investors? And is it to buy to live, or are people buying this as an investment to rent out and to have other people live there?
There's a bit of a mix, which is great. So it's not just a product for one particular buyer. I think responding to your first question, I think at the moment, mostly it's South African buyers. There is a percentage of also foreign investor from other African country. And I think that demonstrate how, again, the Tricolt brand is growing. I think, overall, Tricolt is still relatively a young brand, but have created an incredible portfolio in a very short period. And I think they're making, their name out there for high quality luxury kind of residential. So, I think mostly local. And you start to see actually a lot of people want to live there. So especially when you start looking at the market of the downsizer, people prefer to move away from the responsibility of the large private home with their own garden, et cetera, et cetera. They like this idea of living in a very well-crafted, well-designed apartment, which amazing kind of amenities and hospitality at your step door.
So there's a security element, there's a lifestyle element, there's a convenience element, I suppose, that plays a big part as well?
Absolutely. I mean, as you come back home, you close the door and you are in a different world. I mean, you have beautiful sky bar, beautiful clubhouse with great kind of partner like the Pantry and Marble Hospitality Group, incredible kind of a landscape, and then taking full advantage of the beauty of the views that you have around Sandton.
Give us a bit of an idea of maybe some of the challenges that you face when you put a development like this together, because I think probably putting it on paper or CAD or whatever the systems are that you use now, it looks amazing, but I suppose then the engineers come along and go, well, this might be a bit of a challenge, or we might need some special materials for that, or the road isn't wide enough, to have this amount of people going in and out.
Yeah, listen, there's been, as always, many of them, but one of the key things is, and I often say to my team as well when we design, there's the usual architectural say less is more, which is true. I mean, just let's not try to complicate things too much. When you're looking in particularly this design, actually, it's a very simple, elegant kind of architectural gesture. The floors are repeating themselves, but have a slightly twist, and then making this tower almost feeling that they're dancing down Rivonia Road. But fundamentally, I can tell you the structural engineer was very happy. It was very relatively simple to resolve for them. We have created a very unique kind of a stacking system of your services. So the building, actually, what you don't see of the building, what is behind, works very well, and it's very efficient. And I think, again, it follows the idea, keep it simple, keep it honest, keep it bold, be true to your principle, which, again, from my point of view, it really represents what Joburg is about. It's very honest, bold, strong, and powerful city.
Well, let's just talk about some timelines now, because obviously, as I said, the sales seems to have gone quite well, and there's plans to hopefully sell out pretty soon. Then what happens next? When do we start seeing the construction and hopefully the finality of this project?
Yeah, listen, I'm probably going to speculate if I give you exactly the date of the construction or when construction will start. But what this incredible launch has provided, it's fast track, obviously, opportunity to finalize obviously some of the design development elements, and bring in really to a conclusion your call it architectural packages, and it will really help to fast track, eventually as well the construction and delivery of this project. Sometimes project of this scale needs to be staged. It takes extra time. There's quite enough confidence to probably potentially deliver in both tower at the same time. I just said there is a potential. I don't want to compromise the developer kind of a time frame, but which will be an incredible thing if actually that's materialized. You can imagine both tower will be completed together. Everything will be finalized at once. The clubhouse, the sky bar, the amazing podium, the infinity pool, and etc. So it's a great win for anyone as investing in the project.
Well, certainly a great addition to the Sandton skyline. And there you have it. Aram Lello, he's the lead architect for Olympus Sandton, chatting to me about the Olympus Sandton right there next to LXX Sandhurst and Sandwich there next to Discovery head office. And we've got some further details up on the website if you want to go have a look and get some ideas of what we've been talking about. And Aram, it's been great having you on the Sandton Times Hour.
Thanks so much, Alex. It was great.
Online, on air,
Anywhere, anytime.
This is the Sandton Times Hour.
Taking you to the second half of the Sandton Times Hour, my name is Alexander Leibner, and if there's anything that sounded interesting on the show but you didn't get all the details, don't stress, take it easy, sit back, hop onto the website, sandtontimes.co.za, and visit the show notes for this week, and there'll be a detailed breakdown with all the details, further links, further reading, and anything and everything that you might need. Also, be sure to check out the social media accounts at Sandton Times on your favorite social media platform, X, Threads, Blue Sky, Facebook. What else have we got? Instagram. Yeah, all of them. And you can also use the WhatsApp line 084 Sandton. That's 084 726 3866. And feel free to send through your voice notes, your text messages, and so much more. And that's our exclusive number, by the way. So that's the Sandton Times number, 084 Sandton. Save it on your phone and keep it for future reference. So for those listening to the show for, since when did we start? 2020? Lockdown 2020 is when the show kicked off. You'll know that the Sandton Times Hour has been on the forefront of some of the latest cruise news and cruise information. And whilst cruise companies are in some instances better than others in communicating what they do and how they do it. And for some, the South African audience is a key new market. And for others, well, we're just like a distant itinerary on the tip of Africa. Don't worry about us. We're always on the lookout to bring you first-hand exclusive content. And that's why I'm going to be heading off to Southampton next week in England for the maiden sailing of the Norwegian Aqua. And this is the latest and greatest ship by Norwegian Cruise Lines, which is an American-owned company and ranks up in terms of the top 5 cruise companies in the world. And they are certainly ramping up what they're doing and how they're doing it in terms of cruising. Now, if you've never been on a cruise, but you've been playing with the idea, or maybe you've been on a cruise maybe locally or somewhere else in the world and you couldn't quite make up your mind if you liked it or you didn't like it, it's a bit like picking a hotel or an airline, because often people say to me, no, I've done a cruise before, I'm not quite sure if this is for me. And it's like getting on pick an airline or pick a hotel, and they all have their own quirks and their own services and offerings and unique selling points. So you can't sort of say, well, I've been on one ship, I've been on all of them. They all are completely different. And in this instance, you need to kind of then decipher what it is that you want, kind of what's your style, what's your offering, what kind of execution do you like, and one cruise is not like all cruises, so it's important to make sure you choose the right one for you and pick according to your style and preference. So it's good to do a little bit of research, and obviously this kind of information also helps you in making that decision. Anyway, a few years ago, NCL embarked on a whole new class of ship development, which was called the Prima class, which is a bigger, more modern, packed with eateries and entertainment kind of ship. And they've got a whole bunch of new innovations and attractions and some very interesting itineraries that they're offering around the world. And building on this, they've now released their very first Prima Plus class vessel called the Norwegian Aqua, which, apart from being a few meters longer, it also has a few new attractions. And I had a chance to see this ship under construction in Italy last year. And if you want to go see what that looks like, there's a YouTube video on our YouTube channel, and I actually take you through the ship as it's being built. So there's wires hanging down and bits of metal, and some of the stuff you can figure out what it is, and some of the stuff you actually have no idea what it's actually going to look like once it's done. And it's a bit of a full circle experience, because now that it's complete, it's a chance to kind of see what this new class of ship has to offer. So it's, as I've alluded, it's a little bit bigger than the Prima class ship, hence the Plus, and of course completely different to some of NCL's older cruise ships. If you've been on one of those, I think there's like the Norwegian Dawn and the Norwegian Sky, and I mean there's a whole list of them. And I think these new ships are going to slowly but surely start replacing some of those ships. One of the defining features of this particular release is something called an Aqua coaster, which replaced the go-kart track on top of the Norwegian Viva. So 2 years ago, I had a chance to check out the Norwegian Viva in Miami. It had a go-kart track, a full-on go-kart track. You can get a little car and you literally go zooming around the top of the ship. Quite something. And now they've decided, well, we've done that now. We need to innovate. Let's come up with something different. And they've combined something like a water slide and a roller coaster into one bit of entertainment. And this has never been done before on a ship. It's never been done before on land. And you can just imagine the engineering around this is quite fascinating, because a ship being top heavy and then you've got flowing water and things moving. How do you get that all to work without compromising the integrity of the entire structure? Well, the guys have managed to do this, and we're going to go see what that's like and how that works. But that's just one of those attractions, and this is kind of where there's a fine line between the ship becoming the attraction, where you go on a cruise because you want to go see the ship and some of these cool things, and the itinerary becoming an attraction. So it might not be about the ship. You just sort of sleep on there and eat and drink, but then during the day you get off and you go visit interesting places. And it's about finding that combination of what are you looking for, and once again comes back to what I was saying about what is your style, what is your preference. Would you like a bit of both? Would you rather like just focus on great itineraries, or would you like to focus on a ship that also has something that's quite exciting? So these maiden voyages give you a chance to explore and for us to get an idea of what this new ship has to offer for South Africans. So if you're looking to explore a particular part of the world, but you want to avoid, packing, unpacking, having to worry about language, and then, multiple hotels and transfers, and then, you get something wrong and then you sort of stuck somewhere. On a ship, you literally arrive, you get transferred to the ship, you get on the ship, and then the ship does its 3, 4, 7 day, 14 day, in some instances, world tours, and you just unpack once. You've got one room, and you just get on and off as you need to, and everything's there, and it's a little bit of a stress-free, hassle-free kind of holiday, and you still get to see a lot of great places, which is pretty cool. We're going to be exploring all of this and more over the coming week, and I encourage you to join me on this journey on Instagram, where I'll be posting regular updates from the ship, Wi-Fi willing. Otherwise, I'll do it a little bit afterwards, but as and when, I'll be doing that. And of course, I encourage you to also engage, send through your questions, and let's make it interesting for both you and get you all the information that you might want to get out of it. It's going to be fascinating. I think next week, Monday, we're going to be on the ship already, or we're going to be boarding the ship. So we must just try and see how we're going to do the show. Maybe we'll do it remotely, but we are working on something. So you won't be left wanting. The Sandton Times Hour every week carries on as expected.
Online, on air,
Anywhere, anytime.
this is the Sandton Times Hour.
So used car sales are off to a good start in 2025, with the latest January sales data from AutoTrader showing strong sales and a positive indicator of what's to come for South Africa in the year ahead. And of course, also South African car buyers are also seeming to embrace hybrids and EVs, electronic vehicles, more and more than ever before. And with used electronic vehicle sales up 92% year on year, the AutoTrader 2024 annual car industry report highlights some key trends and top selling models, pricing shifts, and all those things and more. And here to chat to me about this is George Mienie. He's the CEO of AutoTrader. And George, it's good to have you back on the Sandton Times Hour.
Really, really good to be here, Alex. Always nice to be in your show.
George, let's kick off before we get into some of the report stuff about used cars and how they've been doing and EVs, etc. Because the big Asian elephant in the room is how well the Chinese brands are doing in South Africa. I mean, it just seems like whenever you go out onto the road, there's either a Haval or a Cherry or an Omoda or a Jetour, and there's more and more of them coming. I mean, almost on a monthly basis, there's some new brand launching into the market.
Well, firstly, anecdotally, did you know that Asian elephants are actually smaller than African elephants?
They might be smaller, but there seems to be more of them.
So hopefully the big elephants win out.
Well, we can only hope.
Exactly. Have you seen those things push trees over? I don't know if an Asian elephant can push a tree over like that.
Listen, I don't want to take them on, that's for sure.
That's for sure. Anyway, but more seriously, less than Asian vehicles, but more directly Chinese vehicles are really gaining momentum with growth rates in the 100%. Now, you've got to really juxtapose that against the low volumes. At the moment, Chinese vehicles only occupy just over 1% of the population of cars at the moment that we see on AutoTrader's platform anyway. But it's growing at a rate of 150, 200%, depending on which make, model, and variant. Mostly Haval's, Chery, and Suzuki Swift. Well, Suzuki Swift is Japanese, right? You've got to take notice of that. It's not something that we can just be talking about elephants and ostrich and put our head in the sand. You got to take notice of that because otherwise it's potentially going to come and bite us. Now you got to ask yourself the question: is the Chinese vehicle a bad thing? And the answer to that is no, not necessarily. From a car point of view, it's actually really great value for money. I think my perspective is more along the lines of what it can do to our economy, the wider economy. Because we all know that Australia became a net importer. They don't manufacture vehicles anymore. And I think the Chinese vehicles could potentially push us in that direction. And if our manufacturers exit, thousands of jobs are lost. So that economic effect is my worry. We need to polish up our trade relations around the world in order to not allow that to happen to our automotive economy. And we can't expect the German brands to start to produce substandard vehicles to what they have at the moment. There has to be a bit of a quid pro quo, yeah.
Absolutely. And interesting, I had a chance to tour the Roslyn plant for BMW just a couple of weeks ago. And it's incredible how often we forget the knock-on effect that these manufacturers have. It's not just the plant itself that's employing people and keeping them going in the economy. It's all the, in German we call them Zulieferer. It's all the other companies that are supplying BMW, the seat manufacturers, the cabling guys, the windscreen people, all those. I mean, that's almost like a whole nother plant on its own. We're talking about 50,000 people that are just dependent on that one plant. And if you multiply that by, I think it was 9 or 10 manufacturers that are in South Africa, that's a lot of people.
A lot of people that could potentially lose their jobs as a result of imports. Nothing against the car itself. It's the downstream economic knock-on effects that I think are challenging.
Yeah. George, let's get into the EV conversation, because I'm not quite sure if it's linked or not at all to this influx of Chinese cars, because they are showing more and more promise in terms of delivering EV vehicles that are well priced and obviously being the center point of the universe when it comes to batteries and EV technology. China seems to be doing very well price-wise, quantity-wise. They can supply that. Is that what's also driving South Africa's interest for EVs, or is that just coincidental?
I think it's coincidental because the Chinese vehicles haven't made a significant dent into the electric vehicle market in South Africa yet. BYD is on its way. If you look at the EV reports that AutoTrader has put out, you'll see that three things need to happen. Consumers want cars to be able to charge at a certain rate before there's mass adoption. There needs to be infrastructure. The cost of the vehicle is the biggest deal, though. The cost of the vehicle has to be under 500,000 Rand. And you can see where the Chinese vehicles are coming in at the moment is that you can buy an Moda C5 for 450,000 Rand. You can buy a what is the one I drove the other day, a Beijing, for 450,000 Rand, and they're good, capable cars. Now, those are still petrol-engined cars, but you can see that they're flying off the shelf as petrol vehicles. Now, the moment somebody brings a car into this country, brand new, for 450,000 Rand, that is fully battery electric, it's going to start rivaling the hybrids, because the hybrids are at that price point. And that's why the hybrids are doing so well.
I don't know how you feel about it, but from the different variants that I've driven, petrol, diesel, obviously now you've got hybrid and EV, I still feel very comfortable with the hybrid. I feel like fully electric, I don't know if I'm quite ready for that yet, because obviously there's also a bit of an ecosystem that you have to buy into with the charging, and if you don't have a high-speed charger, that's a whole nother conversation. And then having petrol, well, with the price of petrol, you think, well, if I get a hybrid, at least I'm saving a bit of money, but I've got the best of both worlds. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I think for the foreseeable future, fully battery electric vehicles are going to be for the upper echelon of our country, the top 1%, top 10%, however you want to slice and dice that. And the reasons are, besides price, okay, because price is a big factor. You barely find a brand new EV under R1 million. There's one for 800,000 Rand now, which is the Volvo, but it's still a pricey vehicle. So for the foreseeable future, until somebody brings in a 450,000 Rand battery electric vehicle, that's for the upper echelons, the affluent high income earners. So that's kind of barrier number one. But that doesn't solve barrier number two. As you know, Alex, the vast majority of South Africans do not live in freestanding houses. The vast majority. And when I say vast majority, I would guess north of 80%, maybe even 90% of people live in townhouses, flats, apartment blocks, those sorts of living conditions. Now, if you think about the cost of running an EV, the saving comes from paying R2.50 per kilowatt hour or per unit for electricity to charge your EV. Now, that is a significant saving versus fuel, and then the maintenance cost on an EV is literally almost zero. But you have to kind of recoup that cost over time. The trouble with living in a townhouse or living in a block of flats or living in an apartment building is that you're very then reliant on public charging infrastructure. And public charging infrastructure is capable at the moment. We've got more chargers than we need to for the cars on the road. However, the cost of charging puts you almost in the realm of a petrol vehicle.
Yeah.
That's why hybrids, it's all those little factors that are making hybrids such a lucrative buy right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I concur with you on that. I mean, the acceleration on an electric vehicle is just unbelievable. I mean, I think that's one of my biggest selling points is the fact that once you put your foot down, that thing just goes. That's what makes it incredible. But having said everything that we've said now, if we look at the top cars selling in the second-hand market on AutoTrader, you're seeing those volumes happening. We are still sticking to the traditional brands. We're still seeing the Toyotas, the BMWs, the VWs, the Mercedeses. They are still on that top 10 list. There hasn't been any dramatic new entry into that list. And I don't think there will be one, I assume, for the foreseeable future. So
the answer is right now not, and for the last decade, it's been exactly as you just described. What we are seeing now, so if you look at AutoTrader's lists, they go top 10, top 15, top 20, depending on which report you look at, right? If you look slightly beyond that, and I don't know if you've ever seen those graphs on social media where the number counters go and the brands stop. You've seen those counters, okay? Yeah. So and maybe we should put one together. It wouldn't be a bad idea. If you have a look at the longer list, maybe the top 50 or top 100, you will then begin to see how these brands are starting to climb those ranks. So it's a matter of time. And right now not. And right now South Africans are into their Toyota Hiluxes, Ford Rangers, BMW, VW Polo, GTI, and those cars are still strongly searched for. Let me not forget Mercedes-Benz C-Class. They're still strong on the search and conversion funnel on AutoTrader's data. But you just need to look further down and you'll start to see how those vehicles are coming up. As a matter of fact, I think it was a month ago, we put out a press release where Chery broke into the top 10.
Sure.
I think they just made 9 or 10. I think it's a matter of time.
Well, George, I'm sure we're going to reflect back on this interview, I don't know, maybe the next year, maybe the next few years, and say, do you remember when we had that conversation about are there any new brands on that list? But George Mienie, CEO of AutoTrader, we never have enough time to chat, but it's been good to have you on, and thanks so much for making the time.
Anytime. Thank you, sir.
Right, and with that, it's all we have time for this week's Sandton Times Hour. And as always, if you want to get in touch, you can connect using your email address, editor@sandtontimes.co.za. You can connect on social media @Sandton Times. So hop onto the website, sandtontimes.co.za. And of course, use that WhatsApp line, 084 Sandton. That's 084 726 3866, 084 726 3866. And feel free to send through your voice notes and text messages and whatever else you've got. Be good to hear from you. And don't forget, you can also catch some of the interviews again for the first time if you want to follow on some of these podcast platforms: Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Podcast Party, Iono FM, AfriPods. I mean, there's so many. No excuse not to be connecting and listening to the Sandton Times regularly. Feel free to send through your questions or your comments. And just a big thank you to all the guests who made time to be on the show this week. And of course, the team behind the scenes and behind the mixing desks and wherever else who make this happen every single week. It's hugely appreciated. Thank you for listening. And God willing, we'll do it all again next week.
That's it for this week. Thanks for listening to the Sandton Times Hour. And if you enjoyed it, be sure to share it.